Hello and welcome. This is Business Breakthroughs Podcast. My name is Diane Fulmer, your host. I'm the founder of DE Fulmer LLC, a marketing agency offering book editing, copywriting, and consultation services so busy business owners can bring their authentic stories to their audience to connect, build relationships, and increase their sales. In the description box or show notes, you'll find some links to connect with me. If you want to sponsor an episode, please reach out. Thank you for your support. This is an interview style podcast where we talk to business owners about their origin stories and lessons learned. You'll get to realize you're not alone, and we've all been there at some point. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Comment below and let us know your thoughts on this episode. With that out of the way, let's get started. On today's episode, we have Shay Sun. Shay Sun is an award-winning educator, seasoned coach, and author dedicated to helping women reignite passion and intimacy in their relationships. His mission is to empower women to experience good sex more often by guiding them on a journey of self-discovery and empowerment. Shay's vision is a world where intimacy thrives, benefiting not only couples, but also their families and communities. Hi, and welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on your show, Diane.
Thank you so much for joining today for this conversation, Shay.
This is super exciting.
Yes, it is. So, can you tell me some more about yourself and what led you to start a business?
Wow, that's a great question. So I was a middle school educator for over 20 years. And for the last 10 of those years, I actually started a coaching business. So I actually had a brick and mortar business. At the time, my ex-wife was going through some health issues. And so it was important for me to have a secondary income. And some of my friends said that you're just a natural coach. Didn't even know what the coaching profession was. And then started going into the coaching space. And I realized the fact that there are elements of what I do in the classroom. And then just my one-on-one conversation with friends and things like that had this coaching quality to it. And so that was back in 2014. So literally it was 10 years ago, almost to that time of the year. So it's interesting. So I think the fact that there was multiple things that evolved in terms of why I went to entrepreneurship and all the messiness with that. And then in terms of rebranding in 2020, and then maybe more recently, the last 2 years, I'm really focusing in on who is it that I'm wanting to serve and who's been showing up with the universe will bring into my life. So yeah.
Nice. So, what inspired you to get started in business and make that leap? What have you learned and who helped along the way?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I know the fact that we're always lifelong learners, right? And so I went through many different coaching programs. So one of the founders of the coaching profession, it was called CTI, the Coaches Institute. They rebranded to Collective Institute. And so definitely they helped. A lot of my trainers were amazing. Over a year in that program, then through things like advanced coaching, neuroscience. So applied neuroscience through Be Above Leadership. I'm also a Clifton Strengths certified coach. So then also EFT, sort of emotional freedom techniques. So there's a lot of like organizations that helped me along the way. And then also business coaches, and then also fellow people that I met online who are also entrepreneurs. I think they just gathered around me. There was never like instantly one person. I feel like at the end, if I had to give an award like on stage, there's probably so many people along the way that have helped me out. So, but I think in terms of what really inspired me is because the fact that I do know that with each and every one of us has something unique, that we all have a unique set of experiences in our life that really can communicate to a specific audience.
Yeah.
So I think that your audience will probably be most interested in my pivot about 2.5 years ago. And so for my divorce in 2018, a lot of women told me about their dissatisfaction in their relationship, especially when it comes to the bedroom. And so women would tell me things like, I haven't been touched in 10 years, or I want to leave my husband, or I want to open the relationship. I hear things like, I'm not a cheater, but I'm forced to cheat because I feel trapped and I can't go. A lot of those types of things. And so I think for me, knowing the fact that women were so comfortable telling me about their stories. And then also, of course, just in terms of even like sexual trauma or things like that. And so because they were so willing to talk with me, I think I probably have heard more stories as a man than there are typical other men out there. And so because of that, as I have explored Chinese Taoism, that's really one of the things that has really helped me is that the ancient Chinese, they really looked at sex very differently. They looked at sex from a very health perspective or longevity perspective. And female pleasure is way up there in terms of why sex is important. And so with that, and then also as I'm currently enrolled in the Sexual Health Alliance in their sex ed education track, man, I've learned so much, Diane, and through my reading and so forth. Oh gosh. This is what I say to people. I say learning about human sexuality has made me a better human being because it's expanded my understanding of how varied people are. That has given me greater empathy and compassion. And then also, it's made me a better critical thinker. I mean, as an English teacher, I really believe that I was constantly teaching kids about critical thinking skills. But I think the fact that sex ed really forces you to challenge your assumptions and challenge what you believe in and how to really communicate with people when it comes to things that are maybe challenging to talk about. They say it's easier for Americans to have sex than talk about sex. And
I was
so
able
I think,
I don't believe that. We're a bunch of Puritans over here compared
and a
to.
lot of it's true. There's something called moral incongruence, and they say it's actually not the things that bothers people, it's actually the relationship to the thing. Meaning the fact that on its own, things are just kind of neutral, but if you feel shame around that thing, then that's what's going to cause some emotional dysregulation. And so that's why I tell people, like, when we talk about that idiom, the elephant in the room, right? It's a thing that people like, if the elephant's in the room, and no one wants to acknowledge the elephant. So that's why I joke saying, now imagine the elephants are mating in the room. The level of comfort. And everyone is like, I'm sleeping elephant. I smear the elephant. Elephant. And I don't know how to navigate this. Instead, I think that's the reason why I think it's important for someone like me to really do a deep dive into this topic. So that way, when I do share with other people, I can share it from a very educated and empathetic perspective. So, yeah. But to a certain degree, I almost feel like a translator. And what I mean by that is, like, in education, I would have like parent teacher conferences, right? So I felt like ultimately we're trying to help a student to have a better relationship with their, parents so they can navigate school. But I had to communicate to the parent how to better understand their teen and have the teen to better interact with the parent and also academics. In the same way, I think when it comes to my specific population that I've been attracting to myself, it's actually stand-up comedians talk about how, the woman is the one that's had the headaches. And that's the reason why they don't want to engage in the bedroom. The population that I think is kind of not spoken about is actually the opposite. It's when the woman is the one that is desiring more intimacy. They're the ones that want to have more sex. And the man is the one that is disengaging. And so because of that, I feel like women are the ones that typically get coaching, get therapy, or go into self-help places. So I think that when it comes to the women that are saying, hey, I'm going through my personal development piece, I'm the one that's going to want to, but my man is always wanting to, I think there's the thing that I can help with. So just like I was the teacher, grew up the parent, I feel like I'm the coach that helps the woman. And then maybe this metaphor, but kind of, right? And so because of that, I think that there's some things that I can maybe share with the men and also the women to let them know the fact that it's no one's fault. It really is just a lack of understanding, and a lack of understanding has to deal with some just really, sometimes it's just really basic things. So sometimes it's actually not so much like this huge secret that's out there, but it's really just about applying some truths that maybe will be like, oh yeah, that's really true. Now, how do I actually do that even when it's uncomfortable? How can we say that when it's uncomfortable? So I think really, I love relationship. I love romance. I love sexuality. I love all that. And that really inspired me to make this big pivot. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
I think to thrive is usually means that we need to look at sex. And we need to look at sex in a mature and passionate way, and for both sides to understand each other. So I feel that's why I believe that. Because my pivot from being, because no, I'm no longer teaching in the school. because as an English teacher, I really felt like I was teaching critical thinking through the use of language. And now I believe that I am teaching critical thinking through the mind, the heart, and our bodies.
Yeah.
And so I think that if in sex ed, if we can start honoring the body, honoring boundaries, honoring consent, and if we can do that on a global scale, looking at body sexuality, it means that when a government tells you to go and your enemy, you're going to be like, I don't want to do that because I honor the body and I honor other people's bodies.
What struck me is that one, we have a lot of healing to do as humans, generationally, societally, and a lot of it starts from the inside. And we talk about sex and intimacy, but it's like from inside of us, the things that hurt us the most, the things that we love the most, whatever, we need to heal that. And then the whole world can be healed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I did muster with a shaman like two Christmases ago, and I heard the universe say to me that everything comes down to, or actually what I kept in here was 3 words in the universe. And that was balance the equation. Balance the equation, balance the equation.
Yeah.
And what I heard from the universe is metaphorically, there's a giant math problem.
Yeah.
And each one of us is working on the math problem. And when you balance the equation within, you're contributing to the overall balance of the world. And I think that's where you're getting at, is the fact that when we do our work, we are literally contributing to raising the frequency of us, our collective consciousness. And that's the reason why people talk about the inner work, it's whatever's inside of you is contributing to the outside world. So when we heal our own trauma, we're contributing to the healing of the world. And that is the reason why I think that when it comes to business, if every business out there, in terms of whatever product or service they're creating, is contributing to the healing of both individuals and collective, I think we would live in a very hopeful, positive place.
Yes, exactly. And I did have another guest who was a former math teacher, and he said sometimes it is just a math problem when it comes to business.
Really?
He did. Yes. You have to hear his
Wow.
episode. So, yeah. And it's
Wow.
like little tie-ins in each of the episodes. It's like there's something
Wow.
bigger at work here. Yeah.
I truly believe that because if I talk to people, so here's one that will be interesting to you. Because when we talk about the inner work, a lot of it I think has to deal with. So here, let me pause for a second. I interviewed this one woman and I said, what do you want in a man? Because she was telling me that, she broke up because things weren't aligned. She said 2 things that were so profound. She says, I want a man who is decreasing his victim mindset and increasing his growth mindset.
Okay.
It sounds simple, but it's huge because when a man is in victim mindset, it's why me. When you're in growth mindset, it's why not me? Well, the world issue, but why not me? Because we all have challenges. And so I think when we start looking at the world from that perspective, a lot of things will shift.
Yeah.
I'm Gen X. I love the 80s video games or like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong. Do you remember Donkey Kong, Diane?
Yes.
Yeah. Here's a metaphor for look, 75 was when I was born. Sucks. But here's the thing about Donkey Kong. When you play Donkey Kong, for those of you in the audience who might not, who may be younger, but Donkey Kong was this little Mario guy, right? And he runs across the platform, he climbs the ladders, and then he's trying to save the princess. And Donkey Kong is throwing barrels, and you have to jump over the barrels, grab a hammer, destroy the barrels, and keep on climbing. So a lot of our stories, even our religion, Mario, right, is the savior, right? The Mario is the savior. We're the princess, and Donkey Kong is whatever. It could be a bad political figure. It could be the devil. It could be whatever perpetrator. But when you come to a place where the worldview shifts some, where in your personal life, you start realizing you are Mario, you're the princess, and you're Donkey Kong. You're saving yourself, and you're also getting in your own way by throwing barrels at yourself. And there's hammers that you can be resourceful in. And I think that when we look at it from that perspective, we start realizing something. And what we realize is something that Steve Jobs said. Steve Jobs said the secret to life is realizing that everything around you in life, with the exception of things in nature, was created by someone who was no smarter than you,
Yeah.
right? So that means that you have the locus of control to influence things around you from within you, right? From within you, you have the power of doing that. So recently I've been thinking about an ancient Taoist philosopher who, have you heard of the butterfly dream, Dan? The
It
butterfly dream?
sounds familiar. Why don't you tell me about it so that way our listeners can also know what that is?
So the butterfly dream was about from this Taoist philosopher named Zhuangzi. Okay, so I'm ethnically Chinese, so my dad often will share with me ancient Chinese stories. This is a super short story. Zhuangzi fell asleep, and he dreamt that he was a butterfly. He woke up from the dream, and he asked himself, "Am I a man dreaming about a butterfly, or am I a butterfly dreaming that I'm a man?"
Oh,
Very meta, right?
wow.
Yeah, right. Right. No, I've been thinking about lucid dreams
Yeah.
because have you ever had a lucid dream before where you realize that you're dreaming? Have you ever had one of those
Mhm.
dreams before? And so the difference between a lucid dream and a non-lucid dream is when you have the awareness that you're dreaming, then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to dream this or I'm going to do things, right?
Yeah.
Like you have more control. And so I asked myself, are we lucid living?
Mm.
Are, if we're lucid living, it means that we actually believe that we can change the things around us.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason why when it comes to relationships and sexuality, I truly believe that passion begins within.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes when in relationships, we say that it takes two to tango. And that's true in terms of both people are adding to whatever conflict. But there's this woman who wrote a book called The Sex-Starved Marriage, and her
Mhm.
sequel is The Sex-Starved Wife. And she makes an interesting statement. She says that it takes one to tango when it comes to making change. And the
Mhm.
reason she says that is because when one person changes, the other person has to react differently because the stimulus is different.
Mhm.
And that's the reason why I think when it comes to women in these relationships where they are not, if it's a touchless relationship or if it's a sexless relationship or there's that discrepancy, I think the woman will start nurturing their own self and trying to maybe understand what's going on from a different perspective. Then as they shift and they respond differently, then the man will also be forced to act differently as well. They
Mhm.
can't do the same thing because you've shifted. Like you're not responding the same way as well. That's why I think when it comes to like before people are get married or before people draw in a relationship, they say, be the person that you want to be with, right? And
Yeah.
you'll attract the person. We've heard of that, right?
Yeah.
But somehow once we get in a relationship, we forget that. We forget the fact that but it's still true, right? It's still true. Once you're in the relationship, still be the person that you want to be. And then that person will then, you know, either decide that they're going to rise to that frequency or they're going to wash their hands and say, you know what, I can't do this. But regardless, at least then you'll be centered. It's so important that I'm working with people that are actually in more committed relationships. So
Mhm.
that way everyone's safe because safety,
Yeah.
the brain is asking itself every few seconds, two questions. Am I safe and do I matter?
Mhm.
And then in the bedroom, the third question is, am I feeling pleasure?
Yeah.
So am I safe? Do I matter? Am I feeling pleasure? And I think that if we can both say yes, 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 and we can say that for the other person, are you feeling safe? Do you feel like you matter? And are you feeling pleasure? If
Mhm.
it's yes, 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 then so
Mhm.
there's going to be fireworks, right?
Yeah, I was hoping that we would get to this because you had these workshops about better self-talk. Well,
Yes.
together on those, I attended several of those. You talked a lot about different books that influenced you during those. So, do you want to talk a
Yes.
little bit about those?
Yes, I can do that. So one of the things that I learned about business, and maybe there's a lot of your in your audience who feel this way, but I feel like, well, keep in mind, my grandparents, started the first Chinese restaurant in a city in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I was around food a lot, right? Chinese food, things like that. So the term a la carte, right? When you're ordering just something by itself, right? So if you're like, if the pie is a la carte or an ice cream soup at a restaurant is a la carte. So I'd say like when it comes to coaching, I offered a lot of a la cartes. And I think that the Better Self-Talk series was like an a la carte, meaning the fact that it was specifically for people that are wanting to improve their mindset and the message they'll hear for themselves. I think for a lot of us in business who maybe are multi-passionate or we're good in one thing, I think one of the secrets is actually to ask them, how can we take all the olive cards and then make it into a 5-course meal? And then
Yeah.
who is the people that are wanting the 5-course meal?
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I realized it gets really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things when it comes to the men in these relationships that are maybe have disengaged sexually, that
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons why they may be disengaging is because of depression, or because of the poor body image, or because they're going through midlife crisis, or they're having so much criticism from the people in their lives, sometimes from their spouse, their female spouse. That's the reason they don't feel good. So I think when it comes to my Better Self-Talk series,
Mm-hmm.
hypothetically, let's think that it's the men who actually improve their self-talk. Then that self-talk will then directly solve the issue about their sex life. And
Mm.
that is the reason why I'm now asking myself, how can I take all the things that I've done, like my strengths coaching, like my neuroscience, like my better self-talk, and how can I then put those ducks in a row where they're all leading my clients to a specific location, solving a specific problem? Because before I kept on feeling like I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, I can do that. But I think it actually does form some sort of constellation where there is a North Star. And so because of that, I mean, for example, one of the workshops I gave was on the power of regret.
Yes.
And there are 4 types of regrets: foundation regret, boldness regret, moral regret, and connection regret.
Mm-hmm.
Well, under boldness regret, when they gave this regret survey across the planet, that some people regretted not having more sex.
Mm.
So that falls under that, what I've been teaching there. And so I think looking at the different things through this lens of, do you really want to get into your 80s and 90s and think to yourselves, my goodness, have I really got to express myself sexually in a way that really helped me to feel more human?
Mm-hmm.
And for myself, after my 20 plus year divorce, I've talked to so many other women who've also been in long-term relationships. And they all have said to me the same thing. One of my non-negotiables is a sorry ass sex life.
Mm-hmm.
So many women have told me that is a non-negotiable. I will not be in a relationship long-term with anyone where sexual expression, sexual fulfillment is not honored. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a very clear, here's what I require from the universe. This is what I want to manifest and so forth. And I honestly, where there's plenty of couples or individuals out there, if they just found the right person,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna, and they can have that communication and negotiate decision-making process and influence one another. I truly believe that they will have better sex than they ever did when they were younger. Because that happened for me, and I believe that will happen for other people too. Yeah.
I love that. Nice. Are you ready for some brief breakthroughs, Shay?
Yes, yes, I am.
Okay. These are usually short answers, but if you have a story to go with them, that's fine. I've heard either way. So, what's a mistake people make?
Oh my gosh. I think the mistake people make is actually focusing on the how, and then trying to tell people what is the process they go through in terms of solving their problem when it comes to their audience, instead of looking at helping the audience to know that you empathize with their problem.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
What's a recent lesson?
Oh, didn't Dr. Ruth just pass away not too long
Oh,
ago?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I literally had a post on Facebook that said, RIP, Dr. Ruth. I wish I had met you in this lifetime. See you in eternity.
Mhm.
And I just had a photo of her Blue poster for Ask Dr. Ruth, which was a documentary. And
Yeah.
because of that, someone saw that post and then contacted me and said, I think I need to work with you. So I
Oh,
think what I learned was that sometimes in our like mental capacity, we think that some things have to be like a certain way for people to respond to us. But
mhm.
I think that if you come from the perspective that the universe is always teaching each and every one of us,
Mhm.
I think then it really is just an issue of the fact that we are available to continue showing up. And when
Mhm.
the timing is right, because I think so much of life is about timing. Because
Yeah.
you literally can offer a product, but if the other person's not ready to receive that product, then they're not even going to see your product or your service.
Yeah.
So I think part of it is just that show up, be available. And when it's the right timing for them, they're going to be like, oh my gosh, like I totally need this. Because then it becomes less persuading and it's more of recognizing. I
Yes.
think, right, when you recognize, oh my gosh, you've been what I've been thinking about. Then at that point, they're like, yeah, because I keep for me so much in my life where I thought maybe I need to persuade people for them to understand me. No, it's the opposite. It's for me to
Mhm.
understand them and be able to say stuff or to just be me in the process of that. And then those people who align with my message or align with my personality, where my be, then they're just going to be like they'll just click. Yeah.
Exactly. Building those relationships and being top of mind when that person
Yeah.
needs something like if you meet a plumber at a party, you might think nothing of it, but a couple weeks later, you have a problem in your house.
No.
I,
Exactly. And then also, the other thing that I've been really curious about is for the people who are hearing these conversations.
yeah.
Because they might not be, you might not need the plumber, but because your friend said they need a plumber and you've heard that you need a plumber, then you can connect them. So that's why I talked to a hairdresser actually, who's been working for 30 something years. And I said, do people ever tell you about their sexless marriages? And she says, yes. And I said, well, guess what? Now you know me. If you ever hear it again, here's my business card. So I think that's just
So
like, who in the world
yeah.
are people confiding in about their issue or bitching about their issue? If you
Right.
can literally get into all of they know that you exist,
Mhm.
then it's just a matter of time before they're like, oh yeah, I met this person. I trust them. And then it becomes just a referral thing, right?
Yep. And that also brings up a good point about social proof. Like when people know other people, that's why testimonials and case studies are so powerful. But there's the in person factor too. If someone that you're friends with knows someone, then automatically you have a level of trust for that person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me see here. A recent win that you've had.
I think the other, I guess, recent win that I would say is the fact that, and this is related to the people that I built around me, kind of like you, Diane, and other people who are entrepreneurs that are so kind in terms of caring not only about me as a human being, but then also caring about me and my business. But not only caring about my business for, of course, for that we're all wanting to help each other be like financially solvent and things like that, but also the impact we want to make in the world. So I guess me recent win is actually just brainstorming with some friends. And one of them said, you know what? Maybe the thing that you're really wanting to say is, and I read this to you earlier in the pre-show, where instead of a way out, there's a way in. Well,
Yes.
it's the way out of the ocean. It's kind of like tongue in cheek too, right? Because of the word in. But I think there's something about that. I think for me, one of my biggest wins in life is my ability to build community and build relationships that are authentic and genuine. Because ultimately, I think what life is about is connection. It's
Yeah.
about real, genuine connection, which is really what sex is about. Sex is about pleasure, but it really is the fact that I care about you, you care about me, you matter to me, I matter to you. And we're going to do this thing called life together.
Yeah.
And because of the fact that I feel like I just been so blessed with so many amazing human beings in my life, because I think that entrepreneurs are a tribe unto themselves.
Mhm.
And unless you've actually tried to start your own business, you just don't know. When it comes to entrepreneurship, once you become an entrepreneur, you're now taking care of not just yourself, you're taking care of some other people.
Mhm.
And the decisions that you make and how you show up in the world really does matter. But I
Yeah.
think one of the just things that for myself, I think that I'm a big win is a lot of my friends and entrepreneur friends have been saying to me, just get out of your own way. Stop being that
Mhm.
donkey call and really just be your most authentic self. Because again, people will get themselves out. Those
Mhm.
people who don't resonate, let them be. There's other entrepreneurs out there, right? But the people who really resonate with you, I think they're going to
Mhm.
love you because they're like, yes, you're on the same energetic frequency as me, the way you look at the world and so forth. So I think for me, it's just having friends to remind me of that. And for people, some of my friends or like in my friends who remind me that there was a podcast that I ought to be on and send me like multiple messages to remind me. Thank you for doing that. I think that's just it, right? I think that just having people in your life that care enough about you to be like,
Yeah.
hey, so I appreciate you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on here today. I really
Oh,
appreciate you, right? And it's so great to have you.
thank
Oh,
you, Diane.
so tell me about a goal that you have this year, Shay.
Yeah, you know what I think I'd love to do
Yeah.
is to actually speak about one thing in different ways consistently. I'm letting a pin right here that says neurospicy.
Mhm.
And I think that I should enjoy my neurospiciness, but when it comes to marketing, I think it needs to be honed in a little bit. Because like in my Instagram, I like to share a lot of stories here, but I think that sometimes it might be confusing for my audience because I'm talking about, even though I'm talking about sexuality and relationships, I
Mhm.
think if I can actually point specifically to that woman who is feeling like they want out, I
Mhm.
think zoning in on that will make it so it's clearer because I think that when it comes to neurodivergent people, we have an idea of what we're talking about, but in the process of us thinking about things, I don't know if the person who is our audience always understands what we're saying. So I think that's, like what I like to do. When my senior minister in my first community, she said that she worked in San Francisco. And at one point she was at a place where they were serving French fries, like burgers and fries. And someone said something like, your fries can be crispier, right? And she was like in college or something like that. So she went to her manager, the owner, and said, where some of the customers were saying that our fries could be crispier. And the manager said, in this establishment, we're known for our soggy fries. And some people love our soggy fries. So the most important thing is that we're consistently serving soggy fries. Fries, because those are the people
Yeah.
who like soggy fries. And so I
Yeah.
think in the same way, I think for myself, just being consistent. Because I think for myself, when I put up toast, in my brain was like, I put a post, I put a post, I put a post. So I need to make it more varied because I'm getting bored. But for the audience out there, they're not looking at every single one of my posts.
Mhm.
And not only that, but they have other things on their mind, right? So that means the
Yeah.
fact that there's types, and they say it takes like 7 or 8 or 11 or however many times for things to sink in. So I think I need to, what I'd like to do is to not allow my own personal in quotes boredom of seeing the message to keep me from seeing it from my audience perspective, if that makes sense. So I think
Yeah,
that
that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, I think that's kind of my goal. My goal is actually to step into my audience's shoes and then say and if I'm consistent with the message and they'd be like, oh, that's right. James the one guy I'll just speak to. I want women to do that. If a woman sees what instead of a way out goes a way in, or
Yeah.
don't take it lying down, or
Yeah.
thing like networks, or Snowlow's fall, right? Or things like that. And then it's really messaging to that person. Then later on, when they talk to a friend and her friend is like, you know what? I'm done. I love him. He cooks for me. He does all these things for me. He takes my car for oil change. He fixes the things in the house, but I haven't been laid in 3 years, right?
Mhm.
Then
Yeah.
with that, and then when they hear that, they're like, "Oh, that Shay guy talks about that a lot. Maybe I should look. And for me, I think that's my goal. My goal is if I could actually align that in, or make sure the fact that my website, my messaging, and things like that, have this alignment, so that way my messaging doesn't look like scoliosis. I think that would help people.
Yeah, and there's a lot that you can do with content repurposing too.
Yes, exactly.
So
I think that's what you just said, because I think for myself, it's really about staying with that one audience and
mhm,
talking about that one problem. So when I went down to this 3-day coaching thing, I had never heard so much wailing in my life from women as they thought about their situations.
mm,
And so what it did for me is reaffirmed in me that in this lifetime, there's a specific audience that needs my help. And I
yeah,
think for a lot of women who's gone through those things, so this for me is not just about not experiencing trauma. The flip side of that is like, how do we heal from the trauma and then actually really have full sexual fulfillment? And so I think for me, just reflecting back on those moments where women have told me how difficult things have been for them in the past, and then for me to then be able to project into the future, there it can be really good and genuinely amazing. And so kind of keeping that in mind will continue to help me, because I think part of it is I'm an extremely empathetic person. And as soon as I hear some people having need, it's very easy for my ADHD brain going, I can help, right? Like I can create something for that, right? And so then, of course, then I lose sight as to who I'm helping. I think I finally did land on something in my heart that is going to matter in this world. That's the
mhm,
reason why is I hang out with other entrepreneurs, and they say to me, wow, you're really looking at this from a different way. You're really looking at families. You're really looking at society. You're not just some like tantric, sometimes you can get like woo-woo sexuality and things like that. Or this
mhm,
is not just about like physical pleasure. No, for me, yes, there's physical pleasure, but a
mhm,
lot of it is really about like genuine connection between individuals so that the world does become a safer place for all. Like,
yeah,
I would love to know 7 generations from now, because of my life on this planet, that somehow kids are safer,
mhm,
teenagers are safer, families are safer, and people's nervous systems are calmer. And not only calmer, but yeah, there's something about just feeling like I'm getting the most out of it all. And I think that's what sex does. And when I
mhm,
say that, I'm talking about feeling alive. Like there's something about when you feel like all of your senses are opened up,
mhm,
like sight, smell, taste, touch, like all
yeah,
your senses are in this like receptive mode. And when you have that, I can't think of anything in life that feels so multi-sensory besides food, but even food it takes second place to sexual intimacy. I
mm,
think sexual intimacy is the ultimate multi-sensory activity that you can share with another person.
mhm.
And that's my little chickadee brain loves that. And when I can share that with someone else, I know they love it too. And I just feel like all is well in the world. That's how I feel. So,
This is beautiful and deep, and I'm loving this conversation. So, my next question for you is, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
well, that's a great question. I was in the classroom for over 20 years,
Mhm.
and I really miss the energy of a class.
Okay.
And I think there's 2 things come in mind. One is when you look at families as a classroom,
Mhm.
in 5 years, I would love to know that the wife or the girlfriend and the husband and other members of their families are all growing together and growing in their understanding of human sexuality in a way that feels authentic, real, and that they don't feel shame about talking about it. I
Mm.
think that for me would be really powerful. And that there would be other families that feel like that. And I can have light events with them. Like if you
Mhm.
gave me a bunch of couples who felt disconnected or at one point, but now they're working on it
Mhm.
and they can get into a space together. I mean, it could be a fusion, it could be a hybrid, it could be like sometimes on Zoom, but then I would love to get together with a bunch of people and build like a classroom feeling or
Mhm.
like a church feeling or a spiritual meeting, like all of those feelings that you get from being a part of a tribe of people that
Mhm.
all have something in common. You give me a bunch of couples that are full on sex nerd and
Mhm.
geeking out about things, about the books that they're reading and things like that. And everyone can feel like they're not alone
Yeah.
and that they can all feel the fact that they've been a part of a journey and they feel like that they've experienced a courage within them that even surprises themselves. And if they can encourage each other with things like, hey, have you been to the sex shop? Or have you read this book? Or have you seen
Mhm.
this? And have you opened up? I think I would have a big smile on my face. And I would love to do that with a partner for myself because
Mm.
5 years, that's something else that and the reason for that is because I do believe in balance and I also believe in teamship. So when I
Mm.
was on dating apps, I said that I wanted 3 ships. And the 3 ships that I wanted were friendship,
Mhm.
companionship, and partnership.
Mm.
Because I believe the fact that for myself that I'm not here to do this work on my own. I truly believe the fact that if I have the yang energy, although I've got a little yin energy, that's the reason why I think women feel safer with me. Literally, my testosterone is lower than most men. So even though I identify as a man, I'm straight and my energy and right, all of that, I think, when it comes to feeling safe, especially like with women and even couples, I think there's a different energy when you feel like there's a man and a woman. There's a yin energy and a yang energy.
Mhm.
Because in that partnership, I think then I can talk to women and then like my partner, she could talk to the men.
Mhm.
How they talk. And then go vice versa. Because I think that a lot of this deals with perspective. And I think it's important for there's a mixture of perspective. That's the reason why I think when it comes to coaches and things like that, when you have a female coach that is just coaching women or a female coach that's just teaching men, I think
Mhm.
sometimes it's easy for there to be blind spots. And I know that myself, even though I do feel like I have a pretty good handle on a lot of things that women have shared with me, bottom line, I have to be humble and know the fact that I'm not a woman. And
Mm.
because of that, I think that that's the reason why 5 years from now, if my partner and I are doing this work together, then I know the fact that my clients are more taken care of. Because I think that's really important. Because I think it's very easy when we feel like we're making a difference for our egos to get in the way and to think the fact that we're actually making the difference. And I think, yes, we are making the difference, but I think that you're co-creating truly with the universe. The universe is the ultimate teacher with with all capital letter T or capital letters. If I'm a teacher by trade or whatever, maybe I have one capital letter, but it's not like I'm not the all. And that's the reason why I think that people sometimes will trust me because they know the fact that I'm not, I know I don't know everything.
Mhm.
I also know the fact that there are things that I have learned that I can share the wisdom. And that's the reason why having a partner doing this with me, then they're also bringing in their perspective. And I don't know, there's just something really sexy and attractive and magnetic when you see your teachers that genuinely love one another, because then you know that what your instructor or the person you're hiring isn't just giving you bullshit. Because I
Yeah.
think that we live in a world when it comes to Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, it's really easy to put on a entrepreneur branding inside of the front. It's just what you present to the world. But I think for me, I want people to know I don't have all my shit together, but that's okay. Like in my partner and I, we may have disagreements and things like that, but we're working on it.
Mhm.
And we can help you as well. And I think that people want that authenticity now. And I don't just mean the fact that you share all your dirty laundry or and share out in a not in a way. I mean, I think everything we share as entrepreneur ultimately is in service to the people that we're serving, right? We tell
Mhm.
stories to help them and not just because we need something to share. We can do that with our coach friends, or we can get a therapist, or we can get a coach
Mhm.
to do. Yeah.
Well, Brene Brown talked a lot about vulnerability and leadership. And in a sense, when you're in a coach role, you're taking on sort of a leadership role. So it's important to have vulnerability there and not
Yeah,
have a lot of armor. So that way you can connect with them.
definitely. I think that's one of the reasons why I was such a successful teacher, because teenagers can smell bullshit a mile away. And
Hmm.
I realized that authenticity was a survival skill. Because what happens when students would say things, and I literally was like, wow, things are not going so good. I would literally write down my lesson plan, tell a personal story from your life. And I would do that so that way the kids knew that I was a human being and not just a teacher. Because it's
Hmm.
easy for a student to be defined to a teacher. It's harder for them to be defined to another human being.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something about that authenticity that human beings really appreciate instead of going off some script all the time. And I know that with you because
Yeah.
we've had so many conversations. That's why I trust you and this as well. And so I know the fact that your audience feels it too.
Yep. Yeah. Don't worry. We're just having a conversation here, Shay. So, my last standard question here is what are you promoting right now and how can people reach you about it?
Yeah. So right now I'm creating space for one-on-one coaching, but also if there's a woman out there who says, he's actually had someone who just said this to me the other day. He says, I have a friend and they love each other. And she's finally talked to her husband who's actually interested in getting help. And she says, I think you're the person. So I think that if there's a woman out there who's saying, I am to the point where actually just 2 days ago, a woman saw that I had the book Sex Starved Wife and she was saying something so much in it. So I think if there's any woman out there who's actually feeling like they're on the brink of giving up on a relationship and because everything is good except for the sexual intimacy part, reach out to me. And if there's also a woman out there who says, you know what, my guy is totally willing to learn, I can help with that too, you know? And
Mhm.
so that's for me, I would love to hear from them mm, and see what amazing things can happen.
Yeah. That sounds wonderful. And then I'm going to drag it out of you. You said you're an author. Can you tell us about your book?
Yeah. Oh, thanks. Yeah, so I read a book on happiness. It's actually called The Happy Mindset.
Mhm.
And at 3:30 in the morning, I downloaded 11 questions into my consciousness about how to get unstuck. The book is actually not a very long book. It's really made to help you to get unstuck just for the moment before you, so that like sometimes can't always have access to our coach or therapist or even a friend. And so through these 11 multiple choice questions, which you really about assessing two things. Where is your mind or when is your mind? Meaning is your mind in the past, the future, the present. And the other one is really about your ego.
Mhm.
You know, what are you allowing or not allowing? And so there are 5 mindsets. So there's past happiness, there's future happiness, there's present happiness, there's choice happiness, and beyond happiness. And so depending on where you are in that space, it's important to be able to just go to the adjacent happiness. Because
Mhm.
what happens is, let's say that you have an issue and one friend says to you, gratitude,
Mhm.
write down 5 things you're grateful for. And another friend says, create a vision board. And another friend says, go and smell the roses, go for a mindful walk. And another one says, what are your values? And another person says, let go. Well,
Mhm.
in a small book, you can actually know which perspective that you are currently stuck in and then how to move up one. Because ultimately, sometimes as human beings, because we have very well meaning friends, but they actually haven't heard where we're at. It's kind of like
Mhm.
if you're before when we would have active malls and they're in the mall, there's that dot that says, here you are, it has the red dot.
Yeah. Yep.
Sometimes our friends aren't actually listening to exactly where we're. So let's pretend that you're on the first floor of a mall and your friend is giving you directions, but they think you're on the second floor. You're not going to get to where you need to
Mhm.
go. And I think that's what the book does. If the book does anything well, it does that. I have been playing with the idea of actually doing a intimacy version of that.
Mm.
Because
Okay.
when we look at the past, it's from the framework of that book. Loss, unhappiness would be sexual trauma.
Okay.
Past happiness would be all the peaks that we've had in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Future unhappiness would be our anxiety about our future sexual encounter. Future happiness would be the things we're excited about.
Mm-hmm.
Present unhappiness would be things like touchless marriages. Present happiness would be like, I'm really enjoying what's going on right now.
Mm-hmm.
Choice unhappiness would be things like something when it comes to intimacy, stepping on my values. Or choice happiness would be like, my values are being honored. And then when it comes to beyond happiness or beyond unhappiness, it just means the fact that I might actually be spiritual bypassing or going to toxic positivity. So sometimes when people go into a I surrender place, it's actually not they're going to surrender. They're actually going to avoidance. And those things like, this is just how things are and I'm gonna accept it. But inside they're like mad as hell. So I
Yeah.
think true beyond happiness is realizing that you've already gone through a lot of emotions and you're choosing to radically accept where you're at.
Mhm.
And I think that for some people, it might be that. An example of that would be, let's say, the fact that your spouse is going through some sort of physical condition.
Mhm.
Let's pretend they're going through breast cancer. They just got their breast removed, or the guy is really struggling with having an erection. You still love the person. And so then now you go into a surrender and say, this is what's happening in my relationship. I still care about them. I think that's a different kind of surrender than basically when you're not actually being conscious and aware as to what you're surrendering to,
Mhm.
So that's why I think there's these
Yeah.
stages. That's the reason why I think the book is so good. It's because it actually recognizes that there is not just one answer. And the ultimate thing is sometimes you don't want to go into surrender. Sometimes you want to go to choice. And other times just to be able to say, you know what, I really just need to look at the future and what do I really envision? So part of it really is about those two words that are on the Temple of Delphi, I believe. And those two words are know thyself. And
Yeah.
the second part of that saying is to thy own self be true. And I
Mhm.
think ultimately when it comes to sexuality, some of it really is about letting go and not allowing societal norms or what your parents or your religion is telling you about sex. I mean, ultimately, the most important person to really understand what they truly value and believe about sexuality is you. And
Yeah.
the second person is the person that you want to engage those sexual activities with. And if the two of you could be on the same page about things, then all it is amazing co-creation. Because literally that's what it is. Co-creating pleasure, co-creating fun, co-creating novelty, co-creating adventure. And when you can do that, especially if you're a sex nerd like me, man, there's so much amazing yumminess that can come from it. Super juicy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you're talking about surrender and choice, there can be circumstances that are out of your control. For example, I was just thinking if someone isn't happy with their job, for example, and they can look at the pros and cons of moving jobs or staying with their job. I mean, I guess you could have that in a relationship too. And you can consciously decide, even though you don't necessarily think that things are good right now, to stay where you are. And then at that point, you're making a conscious decision and you can sort of surrender to that and say, this is what I'm doing right now. This is the best decision. And just sort of reach a point of acceptance, like of embracing the suck.
Joyce.
Like,
Yes.
what that is right now. It is what it is. It is what it's going to be. And I'm going to get through it and figure something else out at some point. But this is what it is now.
Yes.
So,
Yes. But it goes back to what you said. It's the conscious understanding that you're making a choice.
yeah.
I think that goes back to what I was saying about lucid living. See what COVID did for the globe is that so many people were forced to get off the hamster wheel and look at the wheel.
Hmm.
And I think that's what happens in relationships too, is that you get into
Yes.
play the greatest hits or play no hit and it's just silent
Hmm.
in the bedroom. And then when you look at it, when you can actually look at it and ask yourself, is this what I want to create in my life? If I have one life to live, or maybe at a time, if you believe in reincarnation, if we have only one life to live at a time with these circumstances, is this really what I want? Or am I just getting comfortable with it? if you recognize it and you're like, I'm choosing this
Mhm.
for a duration of time that's different. I mean, I've had people that I've talked to who said the fact that I'm gonna embrace this until my kids are out of school. And then I'm gonna
Mhm.
reassess as to whether or not this is what I want to do. I've had other people who told me that now that my, daughter is in college, I'm ending this. And I think
Mhm.
men need to understand that because a lot of men get very complacent because I know the fact that a lot of people like men desire sexual novelty. I don't believe that's all men. In fact, I think there's a lot of men out there who can eat like literally top ramen every day or eat the same thing and they're going to be satisfied. But
Mhm.
women, brains, again, broad stroke, but I think women's brains require novelty. And if the woman is neurodivergent on top of that, and they really need novelty. And I think that's what I've been drawing into my life is a lot of neurodivergent women and
Mhm.
neurodivergent women, and they can deal with a man who appreciate that, then it's truly magical. It's fun.
Mhm.
It's when the man doesn't appreciate what the woman is bringing and then getting complacent about it. That's when things become a lot more challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I know because I talked with so many women and a lot of, like I said, because I even one of the last podcasts I did was on ADHD and sexuality. And that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing
Yeah.
the women after a while be like, I can't do this. Like my,
Yeah.
and when I say sexual stimulation, I mean, this goes along with sapiosexuals as well. If you have a relationship and of course you can't be like in the bedroom 24/7. But when you
Yeah.
talk about philosophy or talk about life and you have an in-depth conversation, that's a form of intellectual intimacy. So when you have an intellectual, you have food intimacy in terms of enjoy the same food or
Mhm.
entertainment intimacies. Those are all these
Yes.
intimacies. But when you can Venn diagram that with
Mhm.
multiple, that little coin in the middle, it just blows your mind. Yeah. So yeah, I think that when it comes to relationships, like when you get into those kinds of relationships, life just becomes that much more beautiful and more wonderful. And especially if the person really appreciates you and
Mhm.
appreciates what you bring to the table and tells you, I love you, tells you you matter, tells you you can count on, 'em, and then demonstrates that through their behavior, their action, and things like that.
Mhm.
Life feels different. You interact with life differently. I think you're nicer to your pets and your neighbors and everything.
So, all right, do you have any final thoughts or questions?
Just for the people that are doing business out there, I think love the people that you serve. I mean, genuinely care about their well being holistically and just trust in yourself, trust in your ability, trust the fact that the universe is working in your favor, that life really is working for you from a different perspective or through time and through reflection. You'll see the fact that everything really is good in some way. And I think that having that perspective will then help you during the times where you feel low or you feel like maybe even giving up. Because now that I've been doing this for so long, I've come to the conclusion that, that the growth that I made yesterday is worth it.
Mm.
Because I think it's really important to understand that. It's just because when you think about the seasons, like winter, there's winter, but
Mhm.
winter is not forever. And summer's not also forever either. And so I think whatever season that you're in your business, know the fact that this too shall pass. And then
Mhm.
just make sure that like that you have people around you, awesome people like Diane and other people that can encourage you. I think less of this about the whole you have right. Yeah, but you're not alone. I think you're not alone. I think that's the reason why your podcast is so cool. It's because I think that people hearing other people's origin story and what lessons they learned. I shared this with other people that wouldn't get in a podcast, and they're like, "That's so cool." It's because we all have an origin story. We all have lessons learned. So I think because of that, I think it just helps people to know that they're a part of something greater than themselves.
That's amazing. I love that. All right. This has been Business Breakthroughs with Diane Fulmer and guest Shay Sun. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, save, share, and subscribe. See you next time.
Bye.